Autoimmune disorders are on the rise in the Western world. You or probably someone dear to you might be struggling with symptoms that wax and wane, or a health problem that seems to have struck out of nowhere. Many autoimmune diseases are considered invisible because you can't see the underlying pain that's causing the outward disability. I know that was the case for me before I ran labs on myself and found out I had Hashimoto's. So what are some examples of autoimmune? First of all, you've probably heard of lupus, arthritis, multiple sclerosis, psoriasis, fibromyalgia, and of course, Hashimoto's thyroiditis. These diseases all have one thing in common. Your immune system misbehaves, so instead of only attacking outside threats, it begins to attack tissues in your body. Your body thinks it's trying to fix a problem and is constantly fighting to gain the upper hand against itself. So it's interesting. So what causes autoimmunity in the first place? Well, studies suggest that autoimmune issues can be caused by a predisposition, environment, epigenetics, or genetics. The saying, genes load the gun, but environment pulls the trigger, is really appropriate because autoimmunity is usually caused by your predispositions, but it is then triggered by a specific event that overwhelms your immune system. For example, you may have undiagnosed intestinal permeability, a low-grade viral or bacterial infection that gives you little or no symptoms until your trigger event, such as a season of great stress or big changes in your life. So, what if there is no trigger you can recall? And what are autoimmune predispositions? If your health was represented by a set of old-fashioned scales, perfectly balanced weights, this would symbolize optimum health. But if you piled more weight onto one side, the delicate balance is interrupted and that side tips downwards. These are your predispositions, some of which are with you from birth. Your predispositions are characteristics that make you more susceptible to developing an autoimmune disease. Predispositions can impact your health, but they don't automatically guarantee that you develop a chronic autoimmune disease unless they are combined with one or more autoimmune triggers. Predispositions can be genetic or acquired over time. There's not one singular autoimmune gene responsible. In scientific studies, there's quite a focus on identifying the specific genes that increase susceptibility, though there are others as well. But bear with me a little as we get a little more deep into this gene thing. I want to chat with you about 3 genes that are important in getting to the bottom of what is thwarting your efforts to be the best version of you, especially when it comes to Hashimoto's. So, studies have found that there are 3 genes of interest that correlate with Hashimoto's, which, by the way, we can test for. The HLA gene family contains instructions on making certain human leukocyte antigens that can tell the difference between invading proteins like viruses and bacteria and the body's own friendly tissue. There are many possible variants to HLA genes, but some variants have been linked to developing autoimmune diseases, particularly type 1 diabetes. Next, P53 gene directs the body into making a specific protein that regulates cell cycle. P53 is commonly known as the tumor protein P53 because the protein it generates acts as a suppressor, fighting the creation and growth of both benign and cancerous tumors. However, P53 is unexpressed in autoimmune patients, which indicates that in these patients, immune cells keep dividing and multiplying and are rarely triggered into dying, which is a natural and necessary part of the cell life cycle. The third gene, the IL-10 gene, contains instructions to create a cytokine, which is also an inflammatory marker, a protein secreted by immune system cells that normally attaches to foreign invaders and signals to T cells that they need to counteract them. A specific mutation of the IL-10 gene has been found in certain patients. Further research needs to be undertaken, but the exact connection between IL-10 gene differs with different immune diseases. So in addition to genes, intestinal permeability is often overlooked predisposition. A delicate balance in the digestive system is crucial to your health. Intestinal that's a tongue twister, permeability, leaky gut, where your digestive system is not able to keep fats, proteins, and carbohydrates in the system, so debris leaks out, joining the bloodstream and creating inflammation. Leaky gut can be a precursor to developing an autoimmune disease, as your system is on constant high alert against the unwanted and potentially dangerous waste that regularly sinks through the gut membrane and ends up all around the body. So a trigger is the incident or factor that provokes the signs and symptoms of an illness. Triggers can be sudden and sharp, like an aggressive virus, or they can be subtle, barely noticeable, like feeling uncomfortable after eating gluten. This is one of the reasons why I like to take a timeline of your health history during your first appointment. Although it may seem like a negative exercise to list all your health concerns and issues, it can be an extremely rewarding and enlightening, particularly if it leads to identifying an autoimmune trigger. Autoimmune triggers can be loosely divided into 4 categories. The first is allergies and food sensitivities. A Western diet can be a component of autoimmune diseases, and foods containing gluten can promote inflammation. Celiac disease is identified as an autoimmune disease. Food immune reactivity can cause complications. Infections like Epstein-Barr virus is a notorious trigger for autoimmune disorders. It's not just viruses, though. Bacteria and parasites are also triggers. Chronic infections like Lyme's disease have a large impact on your immune system. Environment is another variable. Pollutants and toxins, a specific exposure to chemicals, heavy metals, mold, often thanks to a location change in work or military history, can cause this. Another is physical or psychological trauma. Stress creates tension and a hormone imbalance in the body, which can trigger an autoimmune irregularity, as the endocrine and immune systems are so closely intertwined. These triggers can tip an already overextended immune system into developing an autoimmune disease. And fourth, epigenetics is especially fascinating in relation to autoimmune disease. Epigenetics is a study of biological processes that switch genes on and off. Yes, you heard me right. That's right. Your gene expression is not set in stone, and these changes can affect your chances of developing an autoimmune disease. Your genes can be made dormant or active by individual lifestyle, exercise, diet, environment, pollution, toxins, stress, aging. So your personal experience, lifestyle, and exposure to pollutants have a huge impact on your immune system. But while it can be useful to know your magic bullet, the supposed cause of your illness, you may need to dig a little deeper. And so why should you even care about autoimmune triggers? Well, many of my clients with autoimmune disease are desperate to know their specific trigger, the magic bullet that created this subtle havoc. It's understandable. Knowledge and being able to label something can help with acceptance and be a way to gain control over your body and begin advocating for yourself. While it's useful to know your trigger, knowing your predispositions to autoimmunity is arguably more important. Knowing what caused your disease is great for your peace of mind, but you need to consider your predispositions as they affect your future. Functional blood tests to identify infections, hormones imbalances, allergies, raised immune cell counts, food intolerance can all be explored, often from saliva, fecal, urine tests from the privacy of your home, no matter where you live in the U.S. But remember, autoimmunity does not happen overnight. In order to improve your health, we may need to bring this together under one roof. Triggers, predispositions, mental health, and sources of stress. Figuring out your trigger is the easy part comparatively. To that end, what hones in is a lab, which I love, called Cyrex Labs. They are the global gold standard in diagnosing autoimmune issues. It's spelled Cyrex, labs.com. You can get their contact information from the show notes below, or you can contact my office if you'd like more information about obtaining a requisition to Cyrex and booking a complimentary thyroid clarity call with me. I promise I won't bite, and you'll come away from our meeting with new insights about the why.